Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Became the Master of Angron. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim dark future, there is only war. This is no place for the kind. The mercy you spout. It is weakness. Kill the boy, and let the man be born. A tormented shinobi finds himself stranded in an unforgiving realm with no path home. The only way out is through. Let there be war. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. He found the boy lying in the snow. In truth, he didn't notice them until he stumbled right over them, such was the snowstorm. If it weren't for his walking staff, he would have fallen right over them. Even then, it was hardly something he expected. It was a chance encounter. Something he hadn't prepared for. A small part of him wanted nothing more than to move on. To retire for the evening with what little food he'd managed to hunt and forget he'd seen anything. Such was his way these days. Whatever had happened here, it clearly wasn't any business of his. The rest of him, however. Damn his bleeding heart. Some things never changed. With a long-suffering sigh, he knelt to inspect the soon-to-be corpse. Their back was a red ruin, their body cold and near covered by wind-swept snow, shoulders rising and falling with unsteady breath, heart barely beating. They had fought hard and fast against a great many foes until they finally fell. And yet, for all that, they were victorious. He looked up and saw their handiwork. And what work it was. He'd not noticed them in the snow at first, but now he did. They were surrounded by broken and bloody bodies for miles in every direction, the drifts steamed with blood, both theirs and those of their enemies. None of them had died clean deaths. The sight of it chilled him deeper than the snow itself. Clearly, this was no mere boy. This was a monster. Anyone who could inflict such carnage, such brutality, was clearly a danger to the world and themselves. He looked back to the dying lad, unable to see his face clearly in the snowstorm, but he could hear his heart raging just as fiercely as the blizzard surrounding them. Baffled, he reached down with a bandaged hand and wiped the snow away, the better to inspect their wounds. Surely he wouldn't live much longer. Not as he was now. And even if they did, with wounds like those, death would be a mercy. Some might even call it kind. In his current state, the boy likely wouldn't even feel it. Was it not mercy, kindness in its purest form? He'd seldom been shown such in his youth. All he had to do was reach down, grab him by the neck, and twist. A simple and clean end for one who had already suffered so much. The bandaged hand reached out for him, only to stop short as the boy whimpered in his sleep. Scarred fingers curled in on themselves apprehensively. He knew pain. He knew what it was to be attacked on sight, to be hunted down like a dog for no sin of his own, but that of mere existence. What had this boy done, to anger so many? Was this a battle of his own doing, or had this fight been forced upon him? Should he kill him? Could he? Did he even want to? Do it then, warrior. A dark voice crooned in his ear. End him. Give the boy your so-called mercy. His right hand twitched, clutching his staff and stilling a tremor. Ignore. Well, what are you waiting for? Ignore it. Why do you hesitate? The words came on again, goading him to action. End him, in my name. Deny yourself no longer. Kill the boy, descend the mountain, wreak ruin upon this world, and I shall grant your every desire. Ignore the voice. It is not real. It can never be real. I am very real, as you well know. And you deny yourself. A red haze crept in at the corners of his vision. He closed his eyes against it. He spared the people of this planet out of some misguided mercy. Discard such foolishness. This is what you are. It is what you were made for the moment they put that beast in your belly, and it is what you always will be no matter what you do. He slammed his staff down, sending a shockwave of light skittering across the tundra, to which voice in his head recoiled with a savage snarl. The snow lifted at his feet, briefly defying gravity before settling down once more. And the storm raged on around him. Alone once more, he allowed himself to breathe as the blizzard howled anew. Allowed the sound fill his ears, drowning out the ringing left behind. He shuddered, clutching his worn cloak about himself for warmth he could no longer truly feel. He had resisted temptation once more. He remained himself. But for how much longer? Dismissing the worrying thought for now, he rolled the boy over in the hopes of at least seeing his face. That proved to be a mistake. He nearly gasped at what he found there. The boy's chest was a red ruin, tattered, scraps of cloth, clinging to torn and sundered flesh. By rights he should be dead with such wounds. An unruly frown crossed his weathered face, prompting words for the first time in what felt like a long, long time. Who are you? The boy gasped back to life, startling him terribly. He took a swift step back as a ragged breath escaped the youth. his chest heaving sharply, and as he looked on, incredibly, the wounds in his chest began to close. Within a matter of moments they were gone altogether, leaving healthy flesh in their place. Wide, panicked eyes sought his, and with them came a flash of feral fear. The boy did what all boys did when they were afraid. He lashed out. Rawr. A powerful fist surged upwards at his face, clumsy and inaccurate, weakened by fatigue. He subsequently caught it in open palm and wrenched it, followed by the boy himself, down to the ground. Even then, the young lad's sheer strength made him struggle for a moment before he managed to subdue him. It surprised him. Few things did these days. Stop. He all but bit the word out, raising his voice to be heard over the storm. You'll hurt yourself. The boy did not. He raged against him, kicking and screaming, and snuggling like some mad beast. He was just a boy. How was he this strong? What was he? Somehow, the boy managed to thrash his way upright and punch him in the face. He saw stars, whole galaxies, and reeled for a moment before recovering. In that moment, that fleeting sliver of a second, he lost control. Blue eyes bled red as his body blazed with golden fire. I said stop. His command, more of a growl, really stopped the bloody boy in his tracks, and knocked the fight right out of him. The youth slumped back to the snow, exhausted, the last of his strength leaving him. He planted a boot upon his chest, then leaned down with a good bit of weight to keep him there. Yet despite that, the boy's gaze still simmered with life. Are you like the others? He glared up at him, his voice a low rasp, face frozen somewhere between anger and anxiety. Are you going to hurt me, too? The words twisted something deep inside of him, something he thought long since lost. The youth mistook his silence for affirmation. Do it, then. He spat at him. Kill me and be done with it. I won't let you take me alive. I am no one's slave. Kill me now, the boy demanded. End me. Before I end you. There was fire in him, even now. Such strength. Such sorrow. Such potential. Should he really throw all of that away on a hunch? No. He decided at length. I don't think I will. He would not satisfy the voice. The boy blinked up at him as he stepped back, squinting through the snow, utterly baffled. Why? Because he reminded him of himself, once upon a time. But he could hardly say that now, could he? The boy would ask questions, and he was in no mood to answer. So he asked one of his own instead. What's your name? Angron. The bloody boy slumped back into the snow, realizing at last that he truly meant him no harm. My name is Angron. Who are? The beginnings of a careworn smile plucked at whiskered cheeks. Who am I? Now that was the question, wasn't it? He had as many names as there were winds, as many titles as there were ways to die. He had accrued many more since he found himself stranded on this god-forsaken world. In the end he settled for that with which he'd grown most familiar. Naruto. It was not a dream. Angron almost wished it were. Dreams were always easy to deal with. You either realized they weren't real and had a fun little romp, or, if you were having a nightmare, you glared at until it ran away. These things worked for him, young though he was. Then again, he was a primarch, though he knew it not, so dreams were easily dealt with by him. Simple was good. Angron liked simple. Simple made sense. Unfortunately his present circumstance were not simple. He knew it when he stirred and found himself wrapped in heavy fur blankets. The pelts of slain beasts, large and small, a far cry from the freezing cloak of snow he'd worn before. His body ached from recently recovered wounds. No matter how quickly he healed, he'd lost a great deal of blood, and was thusly left rather woozy as a result. He was in a cave of some sort, the darkness of which had been banished by roaring fire. It cast flickering shadows on the walls and ceiling. For a moment, he thought he saw creatures within the flames, whispering to him, taunting him, mocking him. Angron, Angron, Angron. Stay away from the fire, little Angron. Don't go near the golden man, Angron. He'll kill you. Stupid voices bothering him again. He must still be half asleep. They weren't real. Reaffirming his belief or rather lack thereof, he blinked, shook his head, and squinted at the flames until the creatures and their voices vanished. With his vision now clear, he finally beheld the golden man sitting nearby on a battered old log, roasting a bit of meat over the fire. The sight of him solidified his thoughts. This wasn't a dream, nor was the man who'd saved him an enemy. Hey, you. The careworn smile flashed his way as the golden man glanced at him. You're finally awake. Angron rose with a grimace, eyeing the meal in his hand. Food. Come sit by the fire and I'll share with you. Angron complied warily, crouching low to the ground as he approached. He needn't have. Naruto freely offered him a haunch of meat. Didn't even bat an eyelash when he all but ripped it from his grasp. The faint scent of the roasted food was enough to make him salivate, but even then his own innate paranoia had him hesitating. What is it? A wolf of some kind. A broad shoulder shrugged. Dunno much else. Tastes good. He offered him an earthen pitcher full of water. This is melted snow. All perfectly harmless. Angron eyed the offerings and wavered. Beggars couldn't be choosers. In the end, he accepted them for what they were and dug in with relish. Sorry. The gold man amended after a moment's pause as they feasted together. It's been a while since I've done this. Eating. Talking. He thumped him on the back. The blow gentle as a feather's brush. I've gotten rusty. What's your story, anyway? Angron grunted and scarfed down more of the meat. Fell from the stars. Naruto granted him a speculative look. You too, huh? Angron squinted at him. There was no familiar resemblance between them. And yet their strengths seemed roughly the same. The query roused his young mind, which in turn came to a logical conclusion. Are you one of my brothers? Back. The older man choked on the last of his meal, gagged, thumped his chest mightily for good measure. Ack. Somehow, he managed to choke down enough of his food to shoot him a withering glare. Where would you even get that idea? You bested me in combat, he answered briskly. No one else could. Naruto promptly thumped him over the head with a bone. I'm not your brother. Angron stared at him for a long moment, waiting for him to take a drink, considered his words, then reassessed. Father, then. The golden man spat out his drink in a rather amusing manner, and glared bloody red daggers at him. How did you even come to that conclusion? Angron granted him a slow, heavy blink. Children do not always resemble their fathers. Naruto gnashed his teeth and made angry Naruto noises. I ain't your pops. Then why did you save me? Naruto shoved another meat bone in his face. Just shut up and eat already. Angron did as he was told, if only because he was still hungry, and did not wish to upset the food giver. It didn't stop him from side-eyeing him. He looked tired. There were deep bags under his eyes, his whiskered visage caked with grime and dirt. He looked as though he might yawn and drift off into sleep at any given moment. Yet he did not. Curious. Pausing to take a sip from the earthen jug of water, he voiced his concerns. Do you not sleep? Naruto turned his gaze on the fire and staunchly refused to look at him. No. Curious. Most mortals needed sleep to survive. Then do you function? By fighting. Came the clipped response. I'm always fighting. There was a weight to his words there. Something more. He could have acted on it, pushed, demanded answers. Angron chose sweet silence instead. His patience paid off. In time, Naruto looked away from the flames and ran a hand through his tawny blonde hair. Do you know the difference between an error and a mistake? Word games. Angron couldn't pretend to understand them. No sir. I'm not a sir. Anyone can make an error. His guardian continued, but that error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. As he looked on, the blonde reached down and threw another log onto the fire, feeding it. Eerie light flashed forth, momentarily illuminating his face and the scars there. This planet is a mistake, as are his people. One I've failed to fix. Angron listened, content to munch on another haunch of meat. We should help them, then. We? Naruto scoffed in mild derision, surprising him. Yeah, no. Not happening again. I tried helping, once. He held up a finger and idly, Angron glimpsed the burned scars there. They didn't want my help. Just their precious gladiator fights. Bastards tried to put nails in my brain. Probably would have sent slavers to do the same for you if I hadn't come along. A blue eye sought his. Do you have any idea what those things do to people? They make you a monster. I'm not even sure I could remove them from someone without killing them. Angron shivered a little at the notion. I am sorry. About what? As quickly as it came, the anger bled away. You've nothing to apologize for. After a moment's pause, he continued. This world is called Mysteria. In the cities below us, the rich oppress the poor and force them to fight for their amusement. Their gladiators are little more than slaves. He considered him for a long moment. And their owners have no intention of allowing them any freedom. Teach me, then. Naruto arched a scarred brow. Ha. How to fight, I mean. Angron elaborated. You beat me easily. I want to be stronger. So teach me. And I'll help you fix this world. Naruto sputtered. Now wait just a second, aren't you getting a little ahead of yourself? He latched onto his arm before he could escape. Please. I want to fight. The battered blonde squinted at him. How old even are you? Angron paused. I do not know. How could he? His first coherent memory on this world was of cold snow and blood and pain. Of being attacked and forced to defend himself for days on end until his body finally gave out. He knew he was tall and strong, but not his age. Likewise, he knew of his ability, something that a normal boy should not have. It was a strange thing, something he could not hope to explain. So he didn't. Naruto squinted at him, flickering firelight casting harsh shadows over his face. Why should I teach you? He lifted his chin stubbornly. I don't mind being hurt. I'm stronger, faster, better at war. Much to his chagrin, his savior remained undaunted. You'll have to better than that. Angron glared at him. Will you kill me, then? I ain't killing you. Then teach me, he challenged. Unless you think you can't. A rare flicker of boyish anger flashed across the whiskered warrior's visage. Dog with a bone, I swear. Again, why? He thumped his chest. Because I wish to learn. Not good enough. How will you use the skills I teach you? This answer, at least, seemed obvious enough to the boy. For good. His would-be mentor stared at him intently. And what you define as good, Here at last, Angron faltered. Good was. Well, good. A nebulous concept that he couldn't hope to quantify. He could only do what he felt. Learning to fight felt right. Helping this planet felt right. Standing for those who could not. Also right. Beyond that he could only hope to learn as he went. But first and foremost, I can help you, too. Here. He laid a hand on Naruto's shoulder and focused intently. He'd always been born with the ability to dull the pain of others, to help them. He'd always had the ability to calm those around them, to empathize. It had been difficult last night, he'd been so afraid, but now he was calm. Confused and concerned, yes, but calm. And he could tell that this man had been living with a great pain for a long time. Burdened by suffering, stricken by a painful loss and his own failures, forced to shoulder all these things alone. Angron took up some of that weight himself. Blue eyes narrowed upon him, tension easing from his eyes. That feels pretty nice, you know. Neat trick. Trying to get my hopes up. He smiled, a real one, this time. There is no such thing as false hope, only hope itself. In hindsight, he had no way of knowing just how profound those words truly were. Naruto twitched as though he'd been slapped, bowed his head, and tucked his chin into his chest. A rusty chuckle escaped him, weak and weary from lack of use. He palmed his face, hiding those brilliantly baleful blue eyes behind one hand for a long moment, as his shoulders convulsed in near silent mirth. At length, he raised his gaze again, and those azure orbs gleamed with renewed strength. Fine. He stood with an effort, conjuring a strange staff of eerie black metal to his right hand. I'll teach you. I'll warn you, though. I've only ever taught one person before. Angron wouldn't call it trust, not truly, not yet, but it was a wary sort of respect. He could live with that. On a whim, he decided to tease his new mentor. I'm calling you master, then. Naruto flung up his arms with an exasperated yell. Why? Would you rather I call you father? I ain't your dad. Leagues away, something most curious event occurred. The Emperor of Mankind sneezed. Curious. Nasiria was a brutal, unforgiving world. A desert planet save for the mountains and a few cities, the latter of which were technologically advanced and ruled over by a wealthy elite known as the High Riders, who dwelt in decadent opulence, while the populace of their cities lived in abject poverty in the slums surrounding their walled palaces and villas. To distract the populace from their poverty, the oligarchic rulers of New Syria held regular gladiatorial deathmatches in massive arenas, using cybernetically enhanced gladiators who battled to satisfy the endless bloodlust of the oppressed people. The aggression-enhancing technology known as the Butcher's Nails was a key part of this process, a fate worse than death for any who found themselves so afflicted with them. Chief amongst these depraved cities was the city of Deshi, the lords of which were ever eager to acquire more fresh meat for their bouts. And so it was that a band of slavers were sent up the mountains to seek the star that fell from the sky. 15 slavers were sent forth, armed and armored to take captives. 15 slavers died horrible, terrible, unspeakable deaths. 15 slavers were sent back to their masters in pieces. It is here that our story takes a turn. Naruto hit hard. Angron felt that a fair estimation of his teacher's martial prowess given the stars he was seeing at present. His bones were broken and his muscles mangled, his body quivering from sheer exhaustion. Truly it was a miracle he remained standing at all. Anyone less would have fallen long ago. Only sheer will and grit kept him going. They'd been fighting for the better part of a week this time around, a constant on and on again battle that pushed both his body and spirit to their limits and beyond. Nearly 7 days without rest or sustenance, nor any of the quiet comforts he'd come to appreciate, only the constant attack that was his master's style. Yet still he stood, wasted and gasping for air perhaps, yet standing still. The cold mist fogged before him as he exhaled heavily, sucking in a ragged breath to steady himself as the snow fell. The falling ice crystals cooled his fevered flesh momentarily yet melted off his scalding flesh soon thereafter, creating an ever-present cut of steam. He knew not where the next attack would come from, only that it was coming. Had to keep standing, or else he'd be eating dirt again. 3 years. 3 years he'd spent training like this with the master of the mountain. That was 36 months. 1,095 days, if one was feeling clever. He didn't even want to think how many hours, minutes, or heavens forbid seconds had elapsed since he'd undertaken this rigorous regimen. Of course, that wasn't to say he hadn't benefited. Because he had. He had a better grasp of combat now than ever before. He had learned well the flow of battle both within as well as without. With them came control of his sometimes less than tenuous temper, which in turn granted him further understanding of these many blessed abilities he'd been endowed with. Better yet, he'd grown taller still. He towered over his teacher now in stature, but not strength. In all likelihood, he never would. He'd learned well what the Golden Man was capable of. A single blow from him burst boulders and sheared snow from the ground. He moved faster than lightning, could and had utterly torn entire squads of slavers apart like so much wet meat. And that was when he wasn't trying. On the rare occasion when Master actually chose to exert himself, he became a truly terrifying foe. He had seen him command the very elements themselves to wreak untold havoc on his foes. Water, earth, fire, air. All these and other esoteric techniques he didn't understand, but respected nevertheless. In truth, he'd no choice but to. Such was the nature of the man his called teacher. His strength, his resolve, his unshakable power. Have you ever seen a slaver choke and die as the air was pulled directly from their lungs? Angron had. It was a bad way to go. But he had other, far more frightful means of fighting when the mood suited him. Angron himself had yet to understand by what his mentor called the one-punch technique, and frankly, he'd no desire to ever experience or see it firsthand. Hear of it was more than enough. And when his mentor's wrath was truly roused, well, the results already spoke for themselves. The so-called High Riders of Nuceria had sent air support against them, once. Fark. He meant Naruto, not Dad, never Dad, not within his hearing, had proven his worth that day. He'd blasted a full squadron clean out the sky, reducing them to burning wrecks on the plains below. From there, he turned his ire upon the nearby mountain their raiders using as a staging ground. He'd annihilated it with some kind of blacklight blast. Angron knew light shouldn't be black, couldn't possibly be such a color, yet there it was. He'd seen a massive peak obliterated until naught, but a smoldering crater remained. While the occasional sporadic raid upon their humble mountaintop home continued every few months, he did not those mind overmuch. They were a fine chance to sharpen his skills, as he was always eager to squash slavers. No ships nor armored vehicles had been sent since. Nuceria sorely missed that mountain. Not only was it a staging ground by which to attack them, but there were also a great many arms and armor factories there. As a result of its destruction, the overall quality of their attackers had fallen into severe decline. Nevertheless, a point had been made that dark day. We repay kindness with kindness, cruelty with cruelty. Send us slaved and we will return them as corpses, but send us ships, and we shall give you craters and cataclysms. Such was the reason Angron called him master. And if he sometimes slipped and called him father, well, Naruto corrected him less and less these days. One day, someday soon, the whales go down the mountain and free this world and then... Boy. The staff briskly tapped his chest, returning him to reality. You're spacing out again. I've been talking to you for the last 10 seconds. Bemused blue eyes squinted up at him from a weary, whiskered face. Had enough. Angron gripped his shoulder and popped it back into place with a grunt. No. His mentor made a displeased noise, only to tap his leg and drive him to a knee. That is why you fail. The young primarch and future leader of the Warhounds sputtered incredulously. Fail. I thought I was doing well. And you were, his mentor walked past him. Until a moment ago. His brow furrowed and he made to follow. I don't understand. I had a teacher once, too. Naruto looked past him, mildly bemused as he slung his ringed staff over both shoulders. His name was Jiraiya. I had other names for him. He was a bit of a pervert frankly, but he understood the basics of training. Angron frowned down at him. Such as knowing when to stop. The sage cleared away a patch of snow with a burst of fire, sat before him, withdrew a flask from his hip, and began to drink. Lest we lose ourselves in the present moment. The son of the emperor lowered himself onto the now ground as well. You almost sounded wise for a moment there, master. Brat. Naruto smacked his bicep with the staff. You should listen to your elders. His brow furrowed. You're not that old, though. Boy. The flask sailed at Angron's head, forcing the empath to catch it, or be left with a rather nasty bruise. Uncorking it, sniffed and took a whiff of its contents. Water. He wasn't sure why he expected anything less. It wasn't as though they could afford the finer things up here. Shrugging, he took a drink of his own, savoring the cool water coursing down his throat. A shadow fell over him. He didn't deign to look back, but he did scowl. This isn't for you, beast. Dinner will come later. An irritated growl was his reward, yet he remained undaunted, even a heavy weight settled on his shoulder. Hair tickled his nose, prompting a sneeze. Naruto chuckled. I think our friend disagrees with you, you know. Perhaps you should listen to him. Angron chucked the canteen back at him. I don't have time for this. I need to train. Master's minion redoubled its efforts to pin him in place. The beasts of Mysteria were a strange lot. Savage but noble, with the strength to match. Naruto had befriended one such beast, a crafty cat that rather resembled. What had he called it, again? A snow lion. Was it the word? He supposed it didn't matter. Whatever it was colorful and large, nearly of a size with him. Enough to give him pause. At the end of the day, a beast was a beast, tame or no. The crafty cat yawned once and laid down beside him, all but curling its massive body around him for warmth. Within moments, it was fast asleep. Angron laid a hand on its mighty mane, unable to quite stop himself from rubbing the beast's head. Damn cat. Naruto chuckled. That cat's got the right idea. We should rest for the evening. Sun's getting real low. Angron grunted at that, but didn't protest. At first. Still, he felt he ought to ask something. It had been gnawing on his mind for some time now. Not merely the matter of the raids, but the fact that they persisted at all. He hadn't failed to notice his mentor's failure to discuss it these last 3 years, and as such, he was determined to get one last jab in. When do we go down the mountain? Naruto blinked at him. Why do you want to go down the mountain? Wasn't it obvious? To free this world, of course. And what do you consider freedom? For some reason, that irritated Angron. He couldn't quite say why. No matter. He'd been waiting for this moment for some time. Now came his moment, the chance to spring the trap he'd been preparing. Freedom is freedom, he grumbled, pushing himself upright against the slumbering cat. I wish to break the chains of the people, cast the high riders down, and make this world a better place. And you will. I promise you that, and I intend to keep it. Naruto's face was a study of contrasts. We'll go when you're properly prepared. Not before. He burst to his feet, looming large over him. But I am ready now. I want to go down there and fight. Every day we delay, people suffer. At that, his mentor merely sighed. You're talking about starting a war. Then let there be war. War? An angry, ugly scowl curled at Naruto's lip. War, war, war. He shook his head from side to side, blonde bangs swing as he bemoaned the word. War never changes. Yet the young are so eager to throw themselves into it. Why is that, I wonder? Anger sparked in Angron's caring heart, and just this once, he gave himself to it, letting it further embolden his words. What do you know of war? The bloodshed. The lives lost. The bodies piled high. Naruto didn't rise to the bait, sparking his ire further, fists clenched at his side as he shouted at him. You know nothing. Not of me, nor of war. Nothing at all. He winced, regretting his words too late. No, wait, he hadn't met that last bit. A raspy chuckle filled the air. I know nothing, eh? Despite himself, Angron flinched. I do know some things, Angron. Naruto's staff tapped down lightly upon the ground, just the once, but it was warning enough to silence him, even without his voice raised. I have seen everything you just described and more. I've lived them. By comparison, pain's an old friend. Misery loves company. Death, a constant companion. A weighty pause followed, and Angron bit back a grunt as he felt the sheer force of his master's full focus on him, had tilted to regard him like some foolish pup, not the warrior he'd become. Yet you, who have never seen a proper battlefield, think to lecture me. Further inspection revealed something worrying. Naruto's gaze had gone red again. Nothing good ever happened when his eyes went red. Angron bowed his head instead, a shallow dip, not daring to break eye contact. I misspoke, I meant no disrespect. I am talking. The young primrage subsided into silence. You should count yourself lucky. You haven't seen half the horrors I have. Something cold and sharp and dark flashed across his foster father's face, there and gone in an instant before he could hope to comprehend its true existence. I've fought on battlefields before, faced down creatures you can't even begin to comprehend. I've seen the dead torn from the afterlife to fight in indestructible bodies formed from friend and foe alike, as the moon bled red. Angron gulped, terrified and fascinated in equal measure. And what happened next? Death happened. The whiskered warrior did not rise to his feet, but he looked at him, and in that moment, his glare made him feel small. You ask me what I know of war, Angron. I am war. He'd anticipated a response like this. Thankfully, he had prepared his plea well in advance, and still had one last card to play. Then help me. He held out his hand to him. If we work together, we could conquer this planet in less than a week. And then what? We rule. He scoffed aloud in open scorn. We'd be no better than those so-called nobles. No? Angron shook his head in disagreement. We free the people and let them choose their leaders. His mentor fixed him with a steel glare. You do realize they choose us, don't you? He huffed. If they do, then so be it. Such would be their choice. Naruto kept staring. I want war, yes. He admitted ruefully beneath his mentor's less than pleased stare, because war is the only way. Don't you see? We have to help them. We've already waited too long as it is. Every night I sense their suffering. His hands ground into fists at his sides. I'd hoped it would become inured to it, that I could learn to ignore it, but I didn't realize you were that sensitive toward. His mentor blew out a breathy sigh. Why didn't you tell me? Angron tore his gaze away. I did not wish to be seen as weak. Naruto was wavering. He could sense this. See it. Time for his ace in the hole. Father, please. Naruto made exasperated Naruto noises and palmed his face to hide his eyes. Told you not to call me that. Angron stared fiercely. This'll end badly. Kept staring. Stop that. Stared. Fine. With a noise akin to grinding bones, Naruto dragged himself upright, brushed the snow from his knees, and stood. But if we do this, and we're clearly doing this, we do it my way. A finger jabbed up at his face, barely able to reach his chin. That's the price you're gonna pay for dragging me into this mess early. Angron nodded curtly on the outside, even as he howled with triumph internally. But you're let then, teacher. Rat of a boy. He whacked a knee with his staff. I hope you can keep up with me. His brow furrowed in mild consternation. Keep up with you? Easily. A hint of his old self shone through in a smile. Is that so? Wait, wah. Naruto barked a laugh and vanished in a streak of golden light. Angron bounded down the mountain after him. He wore the biggest smile. To say they conquered the planet would have been an understatement. The son of the emperor and a fox from another world. They descended the mountain like an avalanche. All of Nuceria trembled in their wake. The nobles never stood a chance. Angron tore the celt ore from its hinges with a triumphant snarl. Metal buckled and squealed in his grasp as he swung it around, wielding it as an impromptu bludgeon against those in the halls to smash his way forward down the corridor. Small arms fire pattered harmlessly across his broad back, unable to pierce his crude leather armor and find the flesh beneath. It barely tickled. Undaunted, he marched on. All the while, he kept his temper in check, fighting with controlled rage, never the once letting his wrath slip its leash. He would do as he'd been asked and hold the line here, buying father time to escape with the city's captives and ferry them away to safety. He had full faith in both himself and the man who had taught him. Someone slashed at him with a sword, only for the blade to shatter against his ribs. He backhanded them, casually obliterating their head. He seared his chest and he scoffed at it. His makeshift shield brained another. The grenade whistled his way, lazily batted back into the enemy soldiers to detonate among them in a haze of fiery smoke. Angron loomed large out of the haze, covered in blood like some grisly avenging red angel. This is not enough. He whispered the words ever so softly. Not nearly enough. Here at last, a pause followed in the fighting. It did not last. What are you fools doing? Shoot him. A high rider brayed at the head of a small army, his once white robe stained red as he thrust a pudgy finger his way. Shoot him. I said shoot him. White piggish eyes regarded him with abject terror as he frothed at the mouth. I'll promote the next man who brings me his head. Whomever fails gets the butcher's nails. I'll hammer them into your skulls myself. Angron rumbled at that, low and deep in his throat. You will do no such thing. The beast speaks. Was that what they thought of him? So madman come down from the mountains. Fools. He paused, considering the quivering guardsmen before him. Their emotions were clear to an empath such as he. Low on ammo and morale alike. He pitied them. I know many of you aren't here willingly. He held out a bloody hand to them. Lay down your weapons and surrender. Those who do so will not be harmed. My mentor awaits you outside. Nearly 36 did just that, throwing down their guns to flee, much to their patron's sputtering dismay. The Red Angels stared at the rest. Last chance. A dozen more fled with a whimper. The rest remained. Angron nodded once and made his judgment. So be it. Fools. The last living High Rider stamped his feet, heedless of his impending oblivion. When we take back this world, I'll throw you into the arena myself. Angron stomped a foot down and lunged. Remember, one of Naruto's lessons came back to him in a rush, as he waded through the stinging staccato of shots. Some leaders like to lead from the front, but there's an inherent risk to that. When one commands one's troops, one makes oneself vulnerable. And if you take out the enemy leader in full view of said troops. He closed the distance between him and his target in an instant, batted aside a guard with his makeshift shield, stomped on another, then reached out to seize the noble by the face. It wasn't difficult. The once proud portly pig howled imprecations at him, gripping his wrists now as he hoisted him into the air. His feet flailed to no avail. All his wails and threats and promise were muffled against his fingers and palm. Even if they weren't, it did not matter. There could only ever be one end for one such a shim. Angron squeezed with intent, popping the noble's skull like an overripe grape. From there, he dropped the pig's now headless corpse to the ground. The enemy lines broke soon thereafter. He saw to it personally. Whirling, he raised the cell door like a battering ram and bowled forward, disemboweling dozens as he went. The act of doing so killed the last remaining guards, rendering them a pulpy mass against the nearest wall. He paid them little heed and dropped his impromptu weapon to tread over their corpses, seeking the next cell door. Metal buckled easily beneath his grasp, and just like that, he was granted egress once more. Ducking low, he slipped into the chamber beyond, squinting into the darkness within. "Do not be afraid." He spoke slowly, calmly to them. "I'm here to free you." Figures shuffled in the shadows. "Allow me." Naruto reappeared at his side in a sudden rush of golden light. Beaming, he leaned past him to ignite a torch mounted into the wall, bringing light into the gloom. Angron took a moment to appreciate the irony. Father had a habit of doing that, bringing light into dark places. For that alone, he was grateful, but for now, he forced himself to focus and gaze upon the captives. These were no gladiators, nor was this a proper cell, he realized, but an opulent chamber, the likes of which he'd never seen before. Women and children stood before him, garbed in robes of silk, the purpose of which even someone like him could guess at. Pleasure slaves. Concubines. Small wonder this last bastion had been so well guarded. Some of the women were holding infants. The muscle jumped in Angron's jaw. Naruto stepped up, bless him. "All right, everyone." Clapping his hands, he bid them approach. "Everyone outside. We're rounding everyone up in the arena and we'll have those chains off quick as can be. Anyone here have the butcher's nails?" The concubines shook their heads silently. "Great." That charming smile flashed forth once more. "Right this way, then. Single file now." Mildly bemused by the act, Angron led them out of the dank and damp room, and to what he hoped would be their freedom. In short order they were led outside with the others, to a great clamor. Emptied of its customary combatants, the arena was full to bursting with hundreds, if not thousands of people, many of whom were former slaves or gladiators. They were, all of them, victims of New Syria and its brutal ways. Their relief washed over him in palpable waves. He could sense their every emotion, their confusion, and the uncertainty that came with it. Dashi had been the grandest of the hive cities, and the last to fall, yet fall it had. It was never a matter of if but only when. Once its armies were routed and its fleets destroyed, all that remained was a land battle. The brisk fight to breach the gates and take the city. The outcome of said battle was never in question. It felt good to liberate a planet. There were still roving warbands to deal with, and there would be much work to do in the coming days, but for now. Naruto nudged him with an elbow, reminding him where he stood. There would be time for speeches later. Yes, for now, he had another task to which he must attend. Looking to the nearest slave, a wisp of a girl only 7 years old with a wrought iron collar round her neck. He broke the shackles with a stern tap of his finger, drawing a gasp from her. As she babbled her thanks, he turned to face the next. So began his great work. One by one, he unburdened them of their shackles, liberated them from their chains. Those who had the butcher's nails would be seen by Naruto, though he admittedly wasn't sure what could be done for them. He could only do what he did best. By breaking chains. "I am free." One after the other, he released them, speaking to each in turn, soothing their fears and worries with his innate ability. "And now, so are you. And you, and you, and you. Let's not forget you over there. And you too, of course." On and on he went, until finally, he came to the last of them. "You are a slave no longer." Angron reached in and broke a sobbing woman's chains with his bare hands. "You are free." Odd. She looked different from the rest. He took her in at a glance, her red hair and pointed ears, those piercing green eyes, a strange mark on her forehead. Humanoid, but not human, clearly. What was she? She held a passing resemblance to those strange aliens who had attacked him so long ago, but she was not of them. One of the concubines by her clothing. Her chains had been stronger than others, more difficult to break, but break them he had. Curious. She stared at him for a long moment, sniffling a little, trembling where she stood. Why does she not flee like the others? Ah. She was afraid of him. Yes, that must be it. But of course. He must look like some red angel to her, covered in the blood of her captors as he was. Angron was wholly unprepared when the woman jumped him. Hugs. He didn't know what to do with hugs. Someone send help. Naruto laughed in the background. I warned you. That was no help at all. What was he to do with a crying woman in his arms? He'd not trained for this. Her emotions washed over him, grief, regret and gratitude all blending into one as she buried her head into his bloody armor. He had to do something. Awkwardly, he patted the Radide's cranium until she ceased crying. It was all he could think to do in the moment. It must have worked too. The Cuz looked up at him, eyes shining with tears. Thank you for being merciful, Red Angel. We were wrong about you. I will spread word of your deeds here today. His brow furrowed. We? Something warm and soft graced his cheek. Naruto laughed anew, even as he sputtered. A thunderous boom from on high caught their attention. Angron looked up, made curious by the noise. He wished he hadn't. A great golden vessel loomed large in the sky just over their heads, descending from the atmosphere. More of the High Lords. No, he'd never seen anything like this in his life. He had no words for such a ship. It was large and golden and big. He was no shipwright, the finer aspects of such were lost on him. He sensed something. A presence looming deep within. A strange woman who just might be an elder took the chance to scamper, melting back into the crowd. Angron barely noticed her. He only had eyes for the ship. As he looked on, the mighty ship opened a ramp of some sort, allowing a single figure to stride down its length. No, to leap from the ramp like some kind of lunatic. Right down into the arena before them. He landed with a mighty crash, kicking up dust to startle the people. Teacher hadn't said a word. And he still didn't speak, even when a glorious gilded figure emerged from the haze of dust, standing large and broad and tall. The crowd of freed slaves murmured among themselves at this new arrival, but none dared approach. Angron couldn't blame them. Not when he looked like that. There were no words to describe this majestic man, this towering titan of humanity, so he didn't make a proper attempt. Whomever he was, whomever he might or must be, his face shone like the sun, so bright that he could hardly see anything about his visage beyond the laurel crown he wore, nor his dark hair. When he spoke, when he looked to him, when he smiled, his voice reverberated with the weight of ages. My son. I have found you at last. Naruto went terribly tense behind him. Son. Angron frowned, decidedly unimpressed by the new rival's theatrics. If you were my father, then where were you? Searching for you. The odd gold man remained undaunted in the face of his. You were torn away from me, my son. You and your brothers. I have been seeking your whereabouts for quite some time. You are among the first I have recovered. Naruto found his voice at last. And you are. Here at last, the larger man deigned to address him. I am the Emperor of Mankind. You have my thanks for looking after my son all these years. But now we must return. You must come with me at once. The stars await and we can ill afford another delay. He wanted to take him to the stars. Naruto frowned and Angron with him. But these people. There are greater concerns, son. Rest assured, my Imperium shall see them looked after. Angron twitched. He kept saying that. Son, son, son. As if he were allowed to say such a thing. Like he had the right. All this time he had been gone. Lost and forsaken. Only now, in his moment of triumph, did he arrive. And now he just wanted him to leave. To up and abandon these poor people they'd freed. To entrust these people his people. With another emperor after just freeing them from the cruel despots of Nuceria. It wasn't even laughable. It was a buzzard. Something cold curdled within him, not fear or anger but glacial rage. No. His so-called father blinked down at him, nonplussed. No. Angron lifted his chin. You are no father of mine. Defiance was not something he had expected. To be rejected outright by one of his sons. He should have been angry. Furious, even. Such would have been the natural reaction of any father. And yet the Emperor of Mankind felt only pride. How curiously quaint. He couldn't remember the last time one of his offspring had stood against him. It had been some time. Not for greed or glory, but principle. Yes, some time indeed. Truly he embodied the best of him. Unfortunately. Nevertheless, you remain my son. Angron bridled below him, incensed by his words. Say what you will. You'll need more than words to convince me. HRRM. Clearly he couldn't just hand Nuceria over to his Imperium, then. His son would not take it well. But neither could they afford to tarry here. Angron's legion awaited, as did the crusade. There was work to be done. Emotions would only. Boy. The Emperor looked down, momentarily nonplussed at being interrupted. You want to be his dad? The whiskered warrior beside his boy stared up at him defiantly, claiming his attention. Then be a good one to him. Taking him off blinded against his will. He shook his head, setting blonde bangs swing. That ain't good parenting, pal. The Emperor paused, considering his son's protector anew. What is your name? The mortal lifted his chin. Naruto. Curious. The Emperor stared at him intently, this seemingly frail, fragile creature that dared defy him so. Short of stature though he was, and wounded in spirit he might be, he still stood tall. He seemed prepared to do battle with him, unaware of the pointlessness of such an endeavor. It might well come to blows between them. He would not relish such a fight, though he was certain he would win a confrontation between them. And yet, he had protected his son. More than that, he'd raised him to be a good man. Better than expected. Very well indeed, if he was so loyal to this pitiful planet. He knew what Angron would have become, if not for him. He had power, yes, but it was not of him, nor of the warp. It was something else. Something different. Something new. An aspect he had not encountered before. He was touched by chaos, yet resisting, had resisted for some time now, it seemed. That spoke well of him. But no matter his merit, he could not afford to simply surrender his son to him, no matter how much of a positive influence he might have been on what otherwise would have surely been a shattered soul. Wait. A positive influence. Something to bind his sons together. To be a shepherd where he could not, a guide by which they might abide. Behind his golden veil of light, his eyes whitened. An idea dawned just then, brilliant in its simplicity. Malkader would have chided him for such. But his old student had always been the suspicious sort, and moreover, Malkader was not here. He was back on Terra, looking after the recently reclaimed horse. Which left him to make this decision, alone. He weighed the pros and cons of it for a moment, considered them as he'd considered other, less earth-shaking decisions in the past. The outcome was never in doubt. Opportunity knocked at the door of destiny, and the Emperor of Mankind seized it with both hands. He turned a small smile upon the blonde one. Shall we make a wager, then? Naruto squinted at him. What kind of wager? Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.